During the Second World War, millions of people lived underground for months at a time. Not hours, not days, months. Civilians sheltered beneath cities during air raids, factory workers operated in buried facilities, and entire command centres were hidden below ground, with no access to open air. Yet these spaces did not become death traps from stale air, smoke, or carbon dioxide. They remained breathable, dry, and surprisingly livable. This wasn't luck, and it wasn't modern technology. It was deliberate design, developed under pressure, refined through trial and error, and implemented with materials that would look almost primitive today. What's remarkable is that many of these ventilation systems still outperform modern shelter designs, especially when power is unavailable. In this video, we are going to examine 9 WWII ventilation systems that kept underground shelters fresh, why they worked so well, and how their principles can still be applied today without expensive equipment or complex machinery. The vertical intake and exhaust shaft system relied on basic physics, not power. One of the most common WWII shelter designs used paired vertical shafts placed at opposite ends of the structure. One shaft served as an intake, drawing cooler air downward, while the other acted as an exhaust, allowing warmer, stale air to rise and escape. This worked because underground shelters maintained a relatively stable temperature, and the difference between interior and exterior air created a natural pressure gradient. In practice, this meant air was always moving, even with no fans. Modern builders can apply this by placing passive vents at different heights, ensuring at least one exit point is higher than the intake. The key lesson is separation and elevation, not airflow speed. The hand-cranked ventilation fan was designed for reliability, not comfort. In many British and German shelters, hand-cranked fans were installed as backups to electric systems. These were not intended to blast air through the space, but to maintain slow, steady circulation during blackouts. The gearing was intentionally heavy, allowing one person to operate it for long periods without fatigue. Today, this principle can be replicated with low RPM manual fans or even bicycle-driven systems. The WWII insight was that ventilation should be sustainable by human effort alone, not dependent on continuous power. The baffle wall prevented blast pressure and smoke intrusion simultaneously. Shelter entrances and ventilation channels often included baffle walls, which forced air to change direction several times before entering the living space. This design blocked shock waves from nearby explosions and allowed dust and smoke to settle before reaching occupants. The same approach is used today in high-end filtration systems, but WWII engineers achieved it with simple masonry or timber partitions. For modern underground rooms, a zigzag air path using plywood or concrete panels can dramatically improve air quality without filters. The chimney-effect heating duct doubled as a ventilation aid. Some shelters integrated heating stoves with ventilation by routing exhaust flues through shared shafts. As warm air from the stove rose, it created a draw that pulled fresh air into the shelter through lower vents. This chimney effect ensured constant circulation during cold months when shelters were sealed tightly. Modern off-grid builders can use the same principle by pairing a wood stove with a properly sized flue and dedicated intake vent. The World War II lesson is that heat and ventilation were designed as a single system, not separate problems. The moisture drain channel prevented mold before it could start. World War II underground structures paid close attention to condensation. Ventilation ducts often included shallow drainage channels at their lowest points, allowing moisture to escape rather than accumulate. This prevented mold growth and reduced respiratory illness. Today, many shelters fail because moisture management is an afterthought. By sloping air passages slightly and providing a gravel drain or sump at low points, builders can replicate this simple but effective solution. The distributed vent system avoided dead air pockets. Rather than relying on one large vent, many shelters used multiple smaller vents spaced throughout the structure. This prevented stagnant zones where air could become foul. The airflow was slower, but more even. Modern shelter designers can adopt this by using several passive vents instead of a single high-powered fan. The World War II approach favoured consistency over force. The charcoal filtration box provided emergency air cleaning without chemicals. In areas prone to smoke or gas exposure, shelters sometimes included charcoal-filled filtration boxes placed along intake paths. These were, pretty crude by modern standards, but effective at removing particulates and odours. Activated charcoal is still used today, and honestly, modern builders can easily construct similar filter boxes using metal containers and replaceable media. The principle remains sound. Filter at the intake, not the living space. The surface-level camouflage vent reduced detection and interference. Ventilation openings were often disguised as debris piles, garden features, or drainage structures. This prevented tampering and reduced the chance of blockage from panic or sabotage. For modern applications, this highlights the importance of protecting vents from accidental obstruction, while keeping them visually unobtrusive. The maintenance routine was as important as the design itself. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of World War II ventilation was routine inspection. Vents were checked daily, cleared of debris, and adjusted based on weather conditions. Airflow was treated as a living system that required attention. Modern builders often install systems and forget them. The wartime lesson is that even the best design fails without regular upkeep. These World War II ventilation systems were not sophisticated by today's standards, but they were robust, adaptable, and proven under extreme conditions. They kept people alive underground for years, not weekends. If you value practical history and lessons that still matter, take the time to study these systems and consider how their principles apply today. If this kind of content matters to you, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others who appreciate real-world history, and help keep this knowledge alive.